Welcome back. I'm excited for this session. It's probably one of my favorite things is getting to hear from the experiences of students. And so that's what we're going to do. For the next 45 to 60 minutes, we're going to get to interact and hear from various students from various programs. We have individuals who are in a master's in management program, a master's in finance, master's in business analytics. And so we'll start off introducing myself, and then we'll let them introduce themselves. My name is Josh. I'm representing GMAT Club, and I'll be the one that's asking all the questions. So I'm the boring person today. And so we'll start with the ladies first. If y'all want to go ahead and unmute yourself, and one by one, I'll call on you, and you can introduce yourself, the program that you're in, and maybe a little bit about you. Melissa, if you want to start us off on that.
Okay, so me, I studied the MIM program at IESE Business School in Madrid, and basically it was a one-year program where I studied the major in finance, and then I graduated in July 2020, and during those COVID time, I managed to get a job in Paris as a project manager, and I started there until December 2020 now.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Caroline, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself as well.
Awesome. My name is Caroline. I currently live in Texas, and I am at the Carnegie Mellon Masters of Business Analytics program out of their business school. It's a part-time online program, so I do work full-time while I take the program, and I currently work for Lockheed Martin in the advanced analytics sector, kind of leading projects that implement analytics across our business while I finish up school. So I graduate in May.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Nikita?
Hi, I am Nikita. I'm a 23-year-old student from India, and currently I'm pursuing my master's in management at HHL Leipzig, Germany. Previously, I have had some strategic working experience in India, and I've done my bachelor's from India as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And last but not least, the lone guy on the panel, Archie, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself for everybody.
Hi guys, so I'm Archie, I'm from the UK, and I'm currently studying for a Masters in International Finance at HEC Paris. Before that, I was studying at King's College London and Johns Hopkins. I was studying international relations. And after graduating from HEC, I'm going to be working in investment banking and consulting in London.
Perfect, thank you so much. So we'll go ahead and we'll dive right in to some of these questions that we have, and that way we can let the audience know a little bit about what to expect as a graduate student and what it's like to be a master's student in COVID times. And so go ahead and anybody can kick it off, open discussion. Tell us a little bit about your student experience this year. I know, Caroline, your program is mostly online. Others are maybe on-campus programs in a hybrid model. So whoever wants to kind of kick it off and tell us a little bit about how your year's gone.
Maybe I could start if nobody's pitching in. But I think this year has been a little difficult for students because there is a lockdown in Germany right now. We did start with a hybrid model, but within a month, a lockdown was declared. So right now, we're completely online. Though our university makes efforts to make the online lecture interactive between students with all the technology coming in and breakout rooms. However, because I have been a student who's seen the hybrid and the offline mode, online mode, I guess online is a little difficult, be it in terms of paying attention or just streamlining your entire day and setting up a routine. So yeah, hoping for the lockdown to open up soon so that we can be on campus.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Caroline, your program being online, it was obviously developed specifically for that mode of delivery. So what has your experience been like at Carnegie Mellon?
You know, in terms of how we actually learn day in and day out, that has, stayed the same. Obviously, like you said, the program was designed that way. The harder part for most people was, how do we now manage working from home and doing school from home? So we were all used to doing school from home, but we were used to interacting with people during the day at work and going into the office and then having our evenings for school. And now in the current environment, that all is meshed into one. You're sitting at the same desk that you work at if you're working from home, and the same desk that you're doing school at in the evenings. And so it's really hard to set boundaries for yourself, create routines, like Nikita mentioned, having a schedule, doing time management. It's much different experience than it was when you could leave your apartment or house during the day and compartmentalize your different priorities in life. So that's really been the biggest change, I think, from somebody who's coming from a virtual program.
Absolutely. And Melissa, Archie, feel free to give your inputs and your experiences. I'm not sure, Archie, if you're on a lockdown or not, but feel free to kind of jump in and give your experience there.
Sure. So I think I'd pretty much echo everything that Nikita and Caroline have said so far. Like Nikita, at HEC in France, we started out having a hybrid teaching model, which was great. However, sadly, due to government regulations, we've had to go fully online. I'd say that there are two things that I'd just add on to that general situation. And that's one, which is the quirk of HEC, and that's the fact that we're on quite a small campus. And as a result, we've had a lot of people staying on campus, and you've been able to meet a lot of your classmates who you wouldn't have the opportunity to meet if you were doing things remotely from home. So that side of things has been really nice. And then just as kind of a little silver lining, I guess, to come out of the pandemic, I think it's probably the only thing which is made slightly easier by the remote nature of the work that we're doing now, and that's networking. I think that it's much easier to connect with a broad number of people when everyone is at home and they're on LinkedIn, and they've maybe got free 10 minutes here and there, where they wouldn't do if everything was conducted in person. So whilst the online courses are clearly not quite as good as in person, there are some compensations.
Right, absolutely. Now, Melissa, you completed your program prior to COVID, and so what was your experience like being on campus for most of your program?
Okay, so I started on campus, and this was supposed to be an 11-month program, and I did half of it on campus. Then I've been completely locked down in Madrid for 2 to 3 months, and then we came back with an hybrid system. So it was quite challenging because we had to adapt a lot, and then we finished with the hybrid one, which were really, really good, because I think from my side that on-campus one was super great, but the online part permit us to develop some skills that I can use now in my job, and we can now compete with other people within the world without moving. So I think this is amazing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you guys for that. And moving into kind of deciding, I'm sure maybe you guys or other prospective students as a whole don't necessarily look at just one specific program, but when they apply to multiple. And so what were kind of the top factors that helped you decide on your specific program of choice? And again, feel free, anybody, to kind of jump in and kick that off.
So I'm happy to start on this one. I think that for me with HEC, there were 3 core points. So it would be the network that you get with the school, the content of the program, and then also the employment outcomes. So to look at the network first, I think HEC does phenomenally well on this point. If you go and look at top financial institutions in London or Paris, HEC is very well represented, and everyone who works there is very happy to help students out and put aside time to speak with them. The second point, the content of the program, I think really appealed to me. And that's because on the Masters in Finance program, you start off with a very generalist content, a very generous program where you're learning both about sales and trading and also corporate finance. And then you can specialize later on and take a wide range of electives, many of which are taught by professionals. So you get a really good academic perspective and a really good professional perspective. And then finally, with regards to employment outcomes, I think everyone's going to say that if you're going to a business school, you're really quite concerned about what kind of job you're going to get at the end. And on that front, HEC does very well.
Absolutely.
So from my perspective, the first thing that I looked at was the curriculum. So something like Masters of Business Analytics or Masters of Analytics or Masters of Data Science. There's a lot of terms out there right now for those sorts of things. And so a lot of universities, it could be a completely different program when you look at the curriculum, much more technical, much more business, much more theoretical. So that was really important. I couldn't just go off of the degree name to know what the curriculum entailed. Some of those degrees are in engineering schools, some are in math schools, some are in business schools, and they all have their own flavors. So I started out by looking at the curriculum. That was important to aligning with my interests, which was much more applied in the business side of analytics and technology insertion. From there, because obviously I knew I wanted to be a virtual student, I really put a lot of emphasis on how was a virtual environment curated within that program. Do they have in-person lectures? Do they have breakout rooms? Like, do you feel close to your cohort? Do you have resources available to you? Being a virtual student, those are really good questions to ask. So those were the main two things, the curriculum for me, and then the environment of being a virtual student and how that was taught.
Absolutely. Melissa, Nikita, you both had chose to pursue a master's in management. And so what kind of pushed you towards that degree program, and then what pushed you towards the university you ended up choosing?
Okay, for me, I was attracted by the MIM because it was only 1 year and I wanted to get to the professional part quite quickly. And then I decided to go to IESE because they had a partnership with my prior school when I get my bachelor. And what helped me really make the decision was during the recruitment process, because they didn't put the emphasis on the academic part, the ranking or anything, but they were more interested in what drives the candidate, our values and our history, and they are trying to get to know us a bit more. And this is what really helped me to make this decision, because they wanted to help me grow as a leader who will have a great impact on the world with good values. So this is what really made me decide this.
For me, I had already done my prior education in something related to management and very strongly related to strategic consulting. So I wanted to do my master's in a field that adds to my previous education, and MIM was sort of a perfect fit for that. So that was my reason to go in with MIM. For HHL, as Archie said, the alumni network is really strong, and that was a major aspect that pushed me towards HHL. Again, the program is known for driving towards strategic consulting, which is something that I aim towards. And all aspects combined, HHL was a top choice for me.
Absolutely. You've all kind of touched on your experience of in-person and or virtual. So we'll kind of skip over that for right now, and we'll go into the internship and recruiting process. For those of you who are wanting to do an internship and are wanting to recruit, what's the process like in your program?
Maybe I restart because it's quite fresh for me. So the process changed a bit because I was supposed to have like several interviews in person, but they did everything online except the assessment center. I had to fly to Paris, and we did it as a sort of boot camp within 2 days. But we had to respect the social distanciation, and we changed a bit the format. But yeah, the first part, it was supposed to be 3 interviews, but I did everything online and I had to do it by Google Meet and so on. So it changed the impact that I could have because I wasn't prepared for that. When you're in person, you can create a link, but with the screen, it's a bit different. So I had to train for that a lot.
Now, did your program provide resources and training for virtual recruiting? Because obviously recruiting in person is a lot different than recruiting virtually. And kind of how you present yourself in person and how you present yourself on camera is a little bit different. So did they provide resources for that?
Yes, I received some materials and we received 2 training how to present ourselves with a camera and how we are supposed to dress, how we are supposed to act. And we did some career fair, virtual career fair also, and this helped me, yes.
Awesome. Anybody else that is kind of going into the recruiting process want to kind of pitch in on that?
Sure, happy to just chip in sort of the investment banking recruitment process, because I feel sometimes it's a little bit different to other industries. Yeah. So for recruiting for investment banking in the UK, at least, the process starts quite early on. It starts really in August or September of the year before the internship commences. So that coincides with the start of the MIF program at HEC, and the majority of people on the MIF are looking to go into investment banking. So really from the get-go, the school is very focused on preparing you for the interview process and making sure that you're ready to take on what can be quite an extensive and tiring process. So that kicks off with a study trip week. Usually it's done in person and you go to London and you meet all these different banks, different private equity firms in person, but this year it was done virtually. And whilst that was a little bit frustrating in many ways, at the same time, it meant that rather than meeting with 6 or 7 companies, you could meet with 20. So you could really increase the breadth of your experience. Then with regards to preparation, the school's really good on this front. And I'd say about half the work is done through formal structures where they give you materials, they give you advice, they give you opportunities to do mock interviews with alumni and with professors. Then I'd say the other half really comes into the fact that you're on campus, you're surrounded by people you know, and they're all going through the same process, and the school does a fantastic job of cultivating a very cooperative atmosphere. So that helps you to prepare because you're all supporting each other through the process. And if I need to phone up my friend and say, I've got an interview tomorrow, it's just come through, it's very last minute, I need to do a mock interview, I know that 10 minutes later I'll have 2 people who can come help me out. So overall, it was a painful experience made that much less painless by the campus experience and also by the material which the school provided.
Awesome. Nikita or Caroline, kind of whoever wants to pitch in there.
For me, I have not really started with the process because I'm just in my first semester and I'm not supposed to do an internship before another year maybe. But there are applications that we're making for internships, and the school really assists us in providing open opportunities and mock sessions where either we solve a case study or we're talking to somebody from the company who's actually hiring people, and they tell us what are the requirements required from us. So, but it's really preliminary right now. We've just started on with it. So the actual process of applications has not yet begun for me.
Awesome.
So even though I work full time, we still go through the whole recruitment process in the MSBA program. So it's the same process for the Tepper School of Business for the MSBAs as it is for the MBAs. Since, of course, one of the best times to look for a career change is when you're finishing a degree. Even if you already have a job, that's a good time to look for a new one if you're interested. And so what we generally do is 1 year before we graduate, so last May, we start the recruitment process. And by that, I mean, we first submit kind of what are our intentions to the Career Center, what industries are we looking to target, where do we have experience in, and through that, they pair you up with a recruitment counselor. And that person is very knowledgeable, hopefully, in that particular sector you're looking for. If you want to go into tech or you want to go into finance or you want to go into whatever it might be. And from there, they help you iterate on your resume, work on mock interviews, target companies that might be in the portfolio of the school and things like that, which is really, really, really helpful. And then kind of help follow you through the process from there and give you advice, even down to how do you negotiate a potential offer and things like that. Because that, is tricky, and it's good to have a second set of eyes and somebody to talk through with it. So those are the formal processes. And then kind of like Archie mentioned, with just having classmates really helps also. And if you're in a cohort with people who are also already working full time, let's say you're in a cohort with 30 people, you already know somebody from 30 different companies now. And that's a great place to start and to build that network up.
Awesome. Caroline, you and Archie both mentioned the camaraderie amongst your classmates. Is that common amongst all? Have you noticed that amongst all of your programs? Is everybody there to help one another? I know a lot of people get the notion that business school can be super competitive and everybody for themselves. Do you feel that your classmates are, there for your best interests and want to see you succeed just as much as they want to succeed?
From my perspective, it's definitely yes. HEC is on quite a small campus, and I think if you had this very sort of sharky atmosphere, it wouldn't really work as a place to go and study. And the school makes a very conscious effort to bring about this kind of cooperative culture. And I think that is seen across the various programs at HEC. So the MIF is one of the largest programs at HEC. There are about 180 of us in total. And when you consider that there's a program like marketing with only 30 people on, and they all know each other very well, they all spend a lot of time together, I think that you find there's an even stronger feeling of camaraderie and cooperation within the smaller programs than even on the big ones. And as a participant in one of the bigger programs, I can tell you it's pretty good already. So yeah, that's definitely something which I feel is consistent across the university.
From my side, I was also afraid when I started the program about this competitive spirit and everything. But what they did at IESE is that at the beginning of the year, they created like several teams, and we were supposed to work in group, and we were supposed to stick with the same team until the end of the year. So we had like 50% of our grades were teams grade. So we were supposed to collaborate, not only compete against each other, but help each other to have the best grade possible as a team also. So as we had to do this, it obliged us to work together actually. And we had like different backgrounds, so we can, every people within his field can bring his expertise and help the whole team toward the best grade possible. So this was quite good. It remained competitive, but as a team also.
Awesome.
I'd agree with Melissa because that's the same culture here at HHL as well. Though we are not in same teams, we have different teams for each project. So that kind of helps us know the other person better as well, and also collaborate to reach the final goal. So the competitiveness is there, and a little healthy competitiveness is important as well. But at the same time, the course is structured in a way that it forces you to actually work in a team as well.
Perfect.
The best part for me was, even though we're virtual, and my cohort's small, we only have 28 people, although the MBA is much larger at Carnegie Mellon. I want to say it's like 120, 140, something like that. But we start out the program by everybody going on campus together for 3 days. This was pre-pandemic. So we were fortunate enough to be able to do that before this all hit last October, so like a year and a half ago. And we got to spend those 3 days on campus, like doing basically what we call boot camp, where we have all the professors come in and speak on different special topics. We run through what we're going to do in the program. We meet each other, do team bonding, go out to the restaurants together. And that was great to be able to meet people who, from that point forward, were only going to be floating heads on the screen. So that was a great start. And then from there, we did rotate teams every project and semester. And so we got to know such a variety of people. I mean, especially in a business analytics degree, we're all coming with different backgrounds. My background in undergraduate degrees in engineering, there are people with finance, people with business, people with other types of engineering, math, stats. I mean, you bring us all together and we're all from different industries too. And it really was so helpful to have different perspectives that I never thought about because I don't see those problems in my daily work maybe. So we've gotten all really close, and probably none of us would have been able to get through this without each other's help and support as we're trying to manage so many different priorities in life also.
Right. Yeah, that teamwork and that camaraderie goes a long way, especially in the middle of a pandemic. If life isn't hard enough as it is, and you're not, having, issues with COVID, having that foundation and that camaraderie really helps you push along in your program. And so, has anybody's programs announced plans for, this summer or this fall? I know Archie, Nikita, your programs are supposed to be on campus. Have you guys heard anything about, how the courses are going to be delivered this upcoming summer and fall?
Yeah, so we have a study abroad program in the fall. So we have been assigned universities for that and also introduced with deep dives for the summer. However, whether it would be on campus or online is still depending upon the regulations to be published by the country. So as soon as things open up, we'll be back on campus. But yeah, the year has been laid down for us.
Yeah.
I think same as Nikita, HEC, I know as a university is very keen to get things back in person. And the only thing that's preventing them from doing that right now is government regulation. So at the moment that's lifted, they'll be back in class.
Awesome. That's good to hear. And so, some of you have recruited and so forth. What's it like to network in the online setting? You can't go and meet with potential employers and so forth. So what is that online setting like? Is it does it cause a lot of nerves? Is it more laid back? What could individuals expect should they have to do the same thing?
I think it's a little laid back online because we mostly depend on things like LinkedIn. And even if we have online sessions or online talks, we would always go back on LinkedIn. So it does get a little laid back. I mean, if we are in a physical setting, it's much easier to talk to a person and actually strike a conversation than on maybe my laptop or my phone. So in that case, I personally would prefer an offline networking session.
Do you find LinkedIn beneficial? I know a lot of career services will, help individuals set up a LinkedIn profile and how to kind of build their own personal brand. Because when you're networking and you're applying for positions, you're highlighting yourself and you're representing yourself and building that personal brand. Do you feel LinkedIn has been beneficial in connecting with alumni?
Absolutely. I mean, right now it's like a holy grail present to you in such a setting, online setting. So even in my school, they help you create a LinkedIn profile, set up your profile, and even assist you in contacting alumni that may be working in your field of interest. So in that way, LinkedIn has been really helpful, especially during the pandemic.
Awesome. Anybody else have some thoughts about how LinkedIn and maybe other social outlets have benefited them in networking?
I think I'd pretty much agree with Nikita. I think it's a really good tool. I think that as far as how it sort of plays into the current context of the pandemic, I'd say that the benefit of being in the pandemic is that it's quite easy to get a very wide network because people have plenty of time and or more time than they would usually, and you can contact them very easily, and it's very easy to set up a quick meeting. The downside, obviously, is that qualitatively, maybe it's not quite so strong, and it's harder to form a good connection. But I think at the same time, having that breadth is invaluable, and the fact that it's more expected for you to go and have a virtual networking session in the context of a pandemic means that it is a little bit easier to build things out quickly and effectively.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Caroline, sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just going to echo what everybody said. Obviously, LinkedIn is a great place to, at a bare minimum, ensure that it reflects you and your skill set and your experience, even if you're not necessarily active on it every day. I personally think it's turned into one of those things where, like, I'm not a manager yet, but once I'm a manager one day and somebody applies and I look them up on LinkedIn and they don't have one, I'm going to be like, what's this person doing? They don't even have a LinkedIn. Are they a real person? So like my parents would probably say I'm crazy for thinking that, but I feel like that's, where it's going for sure. But I think another benefit to LinkedIn that I use it for also is to identify people who have career paths that I want to emulate and see what they did to get to those places and see, okay, besides just my degree, which is, one of the biggest decisions, there's a lot of little decisions you can make along the way. Clubs you can get involved in, certifications you can get, which of course are so easy right now, speaking of pandemic in the virtual setting. So utilizing LinkedIn to see what are other people doing out there, how are they growing themselves and gaining experience, and then using that to develop my own career path is really beneficial.
Absolutely. And Archie and Caroline, you kind of alluded to where I was going with another question. And what are some of the benefits of going to school in the middle of a pandemic? I mean, everybody knows of kind of the downside or the perceived downside from attending in a pandemic, but what are some of the benefits and highlights?
I guess one benefit is obviously the time. So you save on a lot of time for other things to do, maybe something you wouldn't have been able to do if you were traveling to campus. So time is a major upside for me because you just get more free time to do other stuff and focus on maybe taking another course or attending another virtual meeting that you want to do but wouldn't have been able to if you were traveling to campus. So that's an upside.
Absolutely.
This is going to sound silly, but it's always actually one of the bigger struggles before a pandemic. But scheduling time to meet with groups I found to be a lot easier during a pandemic. If you're on a team of 5 people and you all have busy lives, maybe families, maybe you are working, maybe you're doing whatever, it's tough to find time, and across time zones, it's tough to find time to just get together to meet for an hour. But with the pandemic, since most of us aren't doing much outside of our houses or apartments, it's much easier to get together as a group and find common time to collaborate, which has been really great. And then also just the ability and flexibility to move around. Not like permanently, although sure you could do that too. But, right now I'm up in Missouri, I live in Texas. I'm able to still keep up with my responsibilities while still being a virtual student, jump on a plane, take a meeting on a plane with your group, get your reading done, run your scripts in the airport. You just have a lot more flexibility than you do necessarily when you're on campus.
Wow.
And I will add to the more opportunities, more professional opportunities also, because as the company realized that they should shift to the agile mode and go to digital, they need to recruit people who knows how this works, and we are definitely the people who are fresh according to those problems. So I think this is good.
Have any of you noticed in your recruiting process or looking for a job that A lot of postings are for virtual positions. I know, like you had mentioned, Melissa, a lot of companies are noticing the positive impact that working virtual can have on an individual. And so are you guys seeing an increase in virtual opportunities, or is it kind of seeing, you'll start off virtual and then move to an office setting?
Personally, I haven't seen any companies which are looking to go fully virtual long term. I think that from having spoken to a few people who are working during the pandemic right now, and obviously doing so remotely, they definitely feel that the virtual environment has meant that something has been lost. I think in particular, sort of creativity, cohesiveness within the team, and also just the general fatigue that comes with sitting in front of the screen the whole day to only be able to kind of make its way to your kitchen and have that as your commute, as it were, which separates your personal life from your professional life. That's definitely had a negative effect for many people. And I think they're all eager to get back into the office in some form. Now, maybe that would be more flexible, but at the same time, I think there'll definitely be a in-person component to whatever these jobs will entail in the future.
Absolutely. Caroline, I know that this question may not necessarily pertain to you, but feel free to give input if you wish. But does anybody think it's better to enroll in your home country or travel abroad for those that are matriculating in the fall? Some of you may have started your program kind of in the middle of COVID. Those starting in the fall of this year, kind of in the middle / back end, hopefully. Do you think it's better to enroll in one's home country, or do you think traveling abroad would be beneficial as well?
I would suggest to travel abroad, because even if there is lockdown, I think some things will change within the experience, because it's definitely not the same when you travel, you go in the other country. At some point, they will open everything and you will be able to meet people and also to live the experience abroad and speak another language, or I don't know, but you will miss something if you don't travel. From my side, I think it's better to go there.
I would agree as well. If somebody's opting to take up a master's degree in a country which is not their home country, it's always better to travel because even if you're not attending the course on campus, there are 1,000 things that add up to you not being in your home country. And that is always a plus, never a minus. So I would also go for traveling if you're taking up a course not in a home country. So, I mean, if that's in the agenda, travel is a plus for me.
Absolutely.
I think I'd just add on to that it definitely suits some people. And then for others, they're going to be more comfortable staying in their home country. And I think that's just something you've got to kind of figure out for yourself. I personally love it, and I always look for international opportunities. But I know that for many of my friends back in the UK, it's not something they'd really be all that interested in. And that's perfectly fine.
Awesome. Kind of a question that a lot of people may be interested in hearing. Caroline, your program is, and you knew going in that it was a virtual program. And so Tepper had developed it from the ground up specifically for virtual delivery. Archie, Nikita, and Melissa, do you feel that whenever COVID hit and it took your on-campus experience and moved it online, did you feel that the Zoom teaching was worth your tuition dollars?
For me, I was given the option to either start my master's last fall or shift it to the next term or the next year. So I took up the option to come in during the pandemic. So it was justified for me because I did not want to just spend an entire year not doing my master's. So in those terms, it was justified for me. But sure, I mean, an on-campus experience for me is always better than an online experience. But that said, it was a decision that I took knowing that it would be online, and I refused to extend it for a year. So
Absolutely. Did whenever your courses moved online, did your program kind of work out kinks as it went? I mean, I know the development of a course to be delivered in person versus online is pretty different. It's a lot different to develop the curriculum. Did you feel like you were missing out on quality teaching, or do you feel like your professors were still able to convey the concepts of the course effectively despite it being delivered virtually?
Again, I took like half the courses in the hybrid mode on campus and the same courses on the online mode. I guess the teaching style and the lectures given by the professor are pretty much similar. However, it also depends on the student because in the end, we need to put our attention and actually pay a focus on the lecture being given. So it actually goes both ways with the professors. I mean, they're doing this since a lot of years, so the lectures just come in naturally to them. But for students, it's a little new to us. So we also need to pay in that much attention for the lectures to actually be productive and wholesome.
For me, at IESE, they adopt the case study method. So we were supposed to discuss the case that we prepared at home. And with the online mode, we couldn't really participate. Not everybody were able to participate because it's longer, and we had a system to raise the hand and so on. Although in class we could just jump in and discuss more easily. So I think if it's not 100% as good as in-person classes, but they try to keep it with a certain quality. So I would say 80% maintaining the quality, but definitely it's not the same.
Yeah, and Caroline, or Archie, go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I pretty much agree with what Nikita and Melissa have said. I think the fact that you don't have that opportunity to just quickly ask your professor a one-on-one question on your way to a coffee break is, you don't realize how valuable that is until you've lost it, right? But at the same time, I think that if you can be around people who are on the same course as you, that's hugely beneficial because you kind of have them supplementing the purely virtual experience that you get in class. And having that peer support is very useful and somewhat takes the edge off the sort of continuous Zoom that otherwise you find yourself in.
Absolutely. Caroline, your course was developed for the virtual delivery. Do you feel that the instruction is kind of up to the standard you had expected?
Yeah, I definitely think so. So one of the things that I did before I started the program was sat in on some lectures for the cohort before me. And so although that's really only a snippet, you're just logging in for 30 minutes of a lecture, I had an idea of kind of how it would go. But it is very interesting. Like some of our professors have kind of, we've asked, of course, how are you doing there during the pandemic? How are the other professors doing who aren't used to this? And I think that they're based off of kind of what I've understood and seen that there's definitely a different way to structure a class when it's virtual than when it's in person. So a lot of that also comes down to preparation on the student. Are you thoroughly preparing before lecture, given the material, so that during lecture, you can be really interactive and collaborative, because you have to try harder to be collaborative in a virtual environment than you can if you just didn't prepare and you don't have any thoughts. You'll just blend into the background, turn your camera off, and you just aren't going to learn anything. So I think a lot of that does come to the responsibility of the students to say, like, yes, I'm taking advantage of the resources before class. I'm staying engaged during class. I put away all distractions around me. I'm focused on the screen. I'm going to ask questions because that way I remember it better. So I think a lot of it is important that way too, but it does take, the program side to structure a class that will allow for that responsibility on the student.
Absolutely. All right, we got time for one more question here, and it can be kind of a round table. Each person can kind of give their input. What advice would you give to current applicants?
I would say that they should be twice proactive, because when people cannot see you, you have to really, really, really reach out to them, send messages, try to get some call, they have to try to speak as much as people they can, because without this, the program won't be the same. They cannot just stay alone behind the screen. They have to go and try to get as much as experiences they can, and try to speak as much as possible to get known and also to know people. And this is what will make the difference between the others and them.
Awesome. Thank you, Melissa.
I guess what's also important is choosing the right program for you and not just going on the basis of rankings or whatever any ranking page tells you. So something really important would also be to reach out to current students at the school and maybe even alumni at the school, so that you actually get to know how actual life is when you are studying there, which can be helpful to decide what school do you want to go to, and not only on the basis of things shown to you on the internet.
Absolutely.
I will say, for given the last year that we've had, nobody really knows when we're going to be back in person. So under the assumption that you are virtual, at least at first in your future program, I would say my biggest piece of advice is, as you go through this process of making the decision and starting, is be passionate and engaged in what it is that you pick to do. Because if you're virtual and sitting at home or wherever and being a student, you're going to have to remind yourself every day why you're doing it, because you're not going to be on campus. You might not be around a bunch of people also doing it. And it's time for your self-motivation to shine, and ensuring that you're picking the program that you're going to have that motivation for. When it's you sitting right next to the couch in your Netflix, are you going to pick working on your master's degree? So just remind yourself of that as you go through, because that's, the daily dilemma, really.
Yeah, I think that all those points are really valid. It's really important to choose the degree that you're going to be interested in. It's really important to think beyond the rankings. It's really important to reach out to people. And I think the point that I would really emphasize there is reaching out to people. Not necessarily before you've decided where to apply. That I think that's important as well, but also after you've chosen where you want to go and before you necessarily start the actual program. And I think the main reason for that is that it's really important to reach out to alumni and reach out to students, so that you, have a clear understanding of what you want to do after you leave, but you can also be confident in your decision with the program that you've chosen. If you're pretty certain about what you want to do after you leave the program that you're going to do for your master's, that's really helpful, because you can obviously target your job search the moment you start. What courses you're going to benefit from at the university, and you're going to know if it's a good fit for you before you get going. And you'll also get a flavor of what the students and what the alumni are like. So those would be the points that I'd really emphasize and say will make the experience that much better and that much more rewarding.
Awesome. Let me make sure here. We'll snag this question real quick if someone wants to hop in on it real quick. Is there anything that applicants can do to improve their profile that would make it stand out more? So did anybody have anything unique that they felt benefited them?
I guess that's also very specific to the universities you're targeting. For example, for coming to Germany, the knowing the language was an important aspect. So if you're fluent with German, and you're an international student, your profile automatically goes up. And also the past experience you have plays an important role, and how fit it is to your current master's degree. So most of it would also be university specific, what the university is looking for in a student.
Awesome. Awesome.
I would add also if they can do some certification or doing some MOOC online, things like this, it's most of the time valuable, like machine learning, according to what they are targeting, machine learning, deep learning, things like this, it's valuable also.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. We'll go ahead and wrap this up. Melissa, Archie, Caroline, Nikita, want to thank you all again for taking time out of your day and sharing your experiences in your various programs and answering questions. And then obviously to those watching, we have 4 more days of the Master's Spotlight. And so make sure that you get registered for that. Come prepared with questions to ask for admissions teams or student panels. And so with that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Everybody have a good evening.
Thank you.